Greetings and welcome to week number 5 in our practical ministry course. As you have, I'm sure, already begun to realize, my idea about practical ministry has an awful lot to do with balance. It has an awful lot to do with balancing the different responsibilities that we have, the different ministries that we have, the different obligations that we have in our life outside of the church. And I believe in order to be a successful minister, one that is able to practically minister to people, that person has to have established some real guidelines for how their life is going to be balanced and how they're going to juggle all the different things that have to be juggled. All of you, I'm sure, are far too young to remember this, but you may have seen clips on YouTube or other places. Back in the day, there was a variety show on television called The Ed Sullivan Show. As a matter of fact, Ed Sullivan is the host who introduced the Beatles to America on a large scale. Ed Sullivan had a variety show every week that aired, and he had different talent shows, different talent acts, different people who did different kinds of things each week and introduced their talents to the nation on television. One of the most famous acts that Ed Sullivan had on an ongoing basis was a man who would spin plates, and erected all over the stage were these poles, long, thin poles, tall poles. And on each of those poles, this man would begin to spin a plate, and then he would go to the next one and spin a plate, the next one and spin a plate, until at one point he would have 8, 10, 12, 15 plates all spinning at once. And of course, the problem with that is that just about the time you get this one spinning, this one over here that you began to spin several minutes ago is slowing down and about to fall off. And so he would run from one to the other, to the other, to the other, trying to keep them all spinning at the same time. And I have to tell you that ministry is going to feel like that an awful lot of the time if you are in full-time ministry, because there are so many plates to keep spinning. And if you neglect one for another, you'll find that it'll fall and it'll crash, and there are going to be some fallout because it crashed. And so our responsibility as ministers, although probably in a perfect society, a perfect world, a perfect culture, a perfect church culture, wouldn't be like this. But the truth is we work with people. And the truth is those people all expect their plate to keep spinning. And so there are all these obligations and responsibilities that we have. So balance is so important. Personal balance is also important because you personally have some plates that you need to keep spinning in order to stay in the right balance so that you can minister effectively. And I want to talk to you quickly today about 3 of those. Very easy formula to remember. Reaching up, reaching in, and reaching out. Keeping that balance of reaching up, reaching in, reaching out in proper perspective in your life will go a long way toward helping you to keep your ministry in the right perspective and the right balance. Reaching up, of course, is your own personal worship time. We talked the first week about how important it is for you to continue personal spiritual growth as well as personal development. Reaching up in worship to God, reaching up in expectation for what he can show you, what he can teach you, and how he can guide you, and the direction for your life. And so reaching up is so important. You need to spend time in personal worship. You need to make sure that you spend some time getting away to the mountaintop. You need to make sure that you attend some worship services that you are not leading, where you get an opportunity to sit in the seat, sit in the pew, and absorb from great teaching and preaching, and get to worship without being up on stage where people are watching you. But you must keep reaching up and worshiping God and filling your life with the spiritual things that will keep you going. Reaching in, you must make sure that you take care of yourself. You are going to be called upon on a regular basis to take care of others. Here's the problem. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of others very long. You must rest. You must take your Sabbaths. You must take your days off. Somewhere along the line in our American culture especially, we got to thinking that the harder we work, the better it is. And so a lot of pastors and ministers and people on church staff think if it's good to work 4 or 5 days a week, it's better to work 6 or 7. And what happens is we burn ourselves out, we run ourselves dry, we run on empty, and we're trying to help other people when we're malnourished ourselves. So you've got to take care of yourself physically, exercise, eat right, get out for some fresh air, go on a camping trip, go on a retreat. You've got to take care of yourself so that you're rested, so that you're fresh, so that you're energized, so that you can have the strength and the energy to take care of other people. Believe me, when that phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning and you've got to crawl out of bed to go to the hospital to sit with someone for maybe 4 or 5 hours, maybe 12 hours, maybe 2 or 3 days in order to minister to them while their mom or their dad or their spouse is passing away, you're going to be glad that you're in good physical condition, that you've had plenty of rest up until that point, so that you don't go to the hospital or go to try to minister in that situation and you're already exhausted before you get there. So reaching up, worship, feeding your spirit, doing those things that will cause you to stay in a constant state of worship with God, reaching in, making sure that you take care of yourself and the body and the mind and the spirit that God has given you, and then reaching out. Ministering to the needs of people, taking care of those situations where there is tragedy, where there is catastrophe, where there was hurt, where there's divorce, where there's financial crisis, where someone has lost a job, where someone has lost a child. We reach out, but we can only do that after reaching up and reaching in. We can only effectively reach out to other people evangelistically, to share the gospel, to minister to them in the spiritual needs that they have and the physical needs that they have. Once we have spent an adequate amount of time reaching up and reaching in, then we can reach out. So keeping those 3 things in balance will go miles toward getting you to the place where you can practically minister on an ongoing basis without doing damage to your own spirit, your own body, your own heart, your own mind. Keep them in perspective, keep them in balance, keep all 3 plates spinning. Reaching up, worship, reaching in, taking care of yourself, and reaching out, ministering to others. If you get any one of those out of perspective, out of balance, if you spend too much time on one and neglect another, you'll find that your ministry will begin to suffer. The other thing that I want to talk to you as far as balance is concerned is holding on to the traditions of the place that you are ministering, and yet always pushing forward to be creative and innovative in your ministry. You know, some young ministers especially go into their first pastor, to their first position of ministry. They go into that first church position that they are offered, and the first thing they want to do is change everything. They want to make everything creative, everything new, everything innovative. They don't want it to look like it used to look. You want to put your stamp on it, and I get that. I was an 18-year-old youth pastor a long time ago, and I wanted to sweep everything out that had been done before and embrace everything new. Here's the problem with that. The people that you're going to minister to, whether they're young people or young adults or college kids or adults or senior adults or the totality of a church as senior or only pastor, those people have some traditions, right or wrong, that they hold on to, that they count as near and dear to their heart, and that they associate with worship and loving God and church and their relationship with Christ. And if you sweep all those things out, you are going to undermine your ministry, you are going to hurt people, and you are going to do great damage to a local church, most likely. And some people who go in and do that, some ministers who go in and take that approach, never recover. Some of them leave the ministry when they find out how much problem that causes. Some of them leave a church quickly when the church gets disgruntled and dissatisfied with their leadership. So even though you have a desire to make things fresh and new and innovative, you can't go in and just undo everything, sweep everything out, and start fresh. We just don't have that privilege. And so we must keep a balance between understanding those things that are really important to people, those things that they cling to, those things that they kind of hang their spiritual hat on. Don't take those hooks away. You need them to be anchored. You need them to have a feeling of security and solidarity, and you need them to have that foundation that you can then build on and move into some more innovative and creative areas. So you must preserve some of that foundation and tradition in order to build your ministry on. But you must also always be looking for innovative and creative ways to add to and to redirect and to supplement and to stretch the ministry that's already there. You may look at some slightly different way. By the way, you need to spend some time and gain the people's trust and let them know your heart before you get very innovative. But once that's been established and done, then you can do some different things. I've done some crazy things in the past, but many of them have happened after I've been at a pastorate for a long period of time, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13 years, and the people trust me, and they know my heart. They know I love them. They know I'm not changing things to hurt them. They know I'm just trying to stretch them to be more of what they ought to be. And so I've done some crazy things. We've done some things like, instead of baptizing people in the baptistry inside the building, we've taken some field trips and gone down and had our services at the creek or at the river, and then baptized people after our service that we had out at the park or out at the river camp or out at the creek in the local county park facility. We've done that, and that stretches them, and there's lots of things you can do with that. When we've taken communion, I've actually acted that out, like the Last Supper from time to time. Put a long table on the stage, invited 12 people from the congregation to come up and sit at the table with me, and then reenacted the Last Supper, and as a way of doing that, included the whole congregation in taking communion. I've shown videos during special occasions like that. I try to use movie video clips on a regular basis during my sermons. It's something that a lot of the churches I've been at were not used to. We've tried to push our worship envelope a little bit in certain directions, in both directions. I've been in contemporary churches where we've pushed it back toward traditional bit and actually had a choir or invited an organist to come and play with some traditional hymns. And also in those traditional churches, I've pushed the envelope the other way to move toward contemporary worship a little bit. You can always find innovative, creative things. There are tons of ideas on the internet, on Pinterest, on YouTube, in books, by interviewing and talking with pastors of different kinds of churches than you particularly pastor, or different kind of ministers in different situations. There are all kinds of ideas out there, but remember, the key is balance. You must keep the foundation and hold on to some traditional things for folks to keep them rooted and grounded in the church and in the ministry and in your leadership. But then as God allows and leads, and as you win their trust, you can begin to look at some creative and innovative ways to do some different things. So remember, in so many ways, practical ministry boils down to balance, balancing reaching up, reaching in, reaching out, balancing traditional and more innovative ministries, balancing your own personal life, your own personal responsibilities. The word for this week, I think, is balance. And so I pray that as you read the materials, as you watch the videos, as you interact on the discussion questions, and as you do your project for this week, that you will begin to see how balance fits in to this whole idea of practically ministering to people where God puts you at the time He puts you there for His purpose. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week for our last session together.